Why did Johnny Depp sue Amber Heard? Does that mean we can't talk or hint a bit of shade about celebrities anymore because we'll get sued? Hey Zesties! Welcome to the Gleeful Talkshow, where we share zesty stories to cultivate the happiness and hero within. A few weeks ago, I shared briefly in a nutshell about my grief journey. One of the ways that I cope with grief was escapism. Escapism is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Like any other thing, escapism can be a good and a bad thing, so use it moderately. Funny enough, I used entertainment to escape. My entertainment was usually through reading and listening to books, watching anime, and YouTube videos. In the past few weeks, I stumbled upon this news about Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial. It has been on the news for quite some time, but at first I didn't bother. But one morning, I decided to just open a news article about this trial, and boom, I fell down the rabbit hole. So, for those of you who haven't followed the trial, fret not, as I'm here to break it down for you. I do have to warn you, Zesties, that there might be triggering words, moments, and descriptions that will follow, so please feel free to stop here. Although I'm not a lawyer, but I've invested my time well enough to share to you what the commotion is all about and how it started. So, in March 2019, Depp sued Heard in an alleged column that she wrote in the Washington Post about domestic violence and claimed that it defamed him and asking for $50 million in damages. As a result, Heard filed a countersuit for double the damages at $100 million. Why does Johnny Depp or his legal team think that of all the articles circulating around, the Washington Post op-ed was the defamatory one? Because the Washington Post is regarded as one of the leading daily American newspapers, along with the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and the Wall Street Journal. So, the Post has distinguished itself through its political reporting on the workings of the White House, Congress, and other aspects of the U.S. government. Hence, any column or article written in this newspaper, either print or digital, is considered not hearsay but facts. Now, you might think that, hey, these are celebrities. People talk bad about them all the time. Does that mean we can't talk or hint a bit of shade about celebrities anymore because we'll get sued? I'm here to tell you there's more to it than that. And this trial is quite unique and nuanced, so please keep on listening. The proceedings began with jury selection on the 11th of April in Fairfax, Virginia. Fairfax County is in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., and is the most populous part of Virginia, notable for being home to the headquarters of the CIA. The Fairfax County Courthouse is the largest trial court in Virginia, but that's not the reason why Johnny Depp sued in Virginia. The reason why Johnny Depp sued in Virginia is because it's where the Washington Post, the paper in which Heard wrote the op-ed, is published. The Washington Post is not a defendant in this case, but Virginia is where its newspaper houses its printing press and online server. Now that you know why it's held there, let's get down to the reasons of the defamatory suit is filed. First, what is defamation? Defamation, broadly speaking, is any false communication that damages a person's reputation. How does defamation occur? It occurs upon, first, a publication, second, an actionable statement, meaning that the statement must be both false and defamatory. Third, of a concerned plaintiff, meaning the one who sued, in this case, Johnny Depp. And fourth, requisite intent. So, in order to win the suit on a defamation claim, the plaintiff, Johnny Depp, must prove all those four elements that the publication, in this case, the Washington Post, article or op-ed written by Amber Heard against Johnny Depp, whether explicitly or implied, was done with actual malice or negligence of the truth. Actual malice in this case is asking the question, did the defendant, say Amber Heard, made the statement knowing it to be false, or did the defendant make it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, and that is with high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false? There are categories of statements that are presumed as defamatory. I wouldn't go through all of them, but we'll mention the one that's applicable to this case, which is a statement is considered defamatory if it has prejudiced such person in his or her profession or trade, which means that because of the defamatory statement, the plaintiff's reputation has been damaged and caused that person to be prejudiced in his or her profession or trade. Now, in the Court of Virginia, there is a statute of limitations. This means that in Virginia, all defamation must be brought within 1 year after the cause of action accrues. The cause of action accrues when the defamatory statement is published and not when the subject of the statement first learns it. In this case, the article in the Washington Post was published in 2018, even though the content around that article was around 2016. So here's a timeline of the events that were mentioned in this trial and how this trial came about. In other words, why did Johnny Depp sue Amber Heard? So this is quite a long story, so I hope you'll be patient, but this is very interesting. It's like a movie, actually. It's quite interesting. So here it goes. So in 2012, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard started dating. This was a year after they met in the Rum Diary movie set, which they both starred in. Take note that prior to the stars dating, Johnny Depp was in a 14-year relationship with Vanessa Paradis, where they have 2 kids. In 2013, Heard alleges she was assaulted for the first time, where they got into an argument in which Heard alleges Depp hit her after she made fun of Depp's tattoo that read, quote-unquote, Wino Forever, which is an altered version of Winona Forever, a memento of Depp's relationship with actress Winona Ryder, which you know is from Stranger Things. Depp denied this incident took place and quote, "Why would I take such a great offense to someone making fun of a tattoo on my body?" unquote. In this testimony, he also mentioned that it was Heard or Miss Heard who was angry at him because of that tattoo and she wanted her name tattooed on his body too. Now, this is interesting, especially when you are closely monitoring this trial, because there were a lot of inconsistencies with Amber Heard's own testimony. One thing, she said that the first year of the relationship was bliss and magic. And another thing, she said that Johnny Depp was violent to her even in the first year of the relationship. So, which is which? Anyway, in March 2014, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard got engaged. In the same year, Heard claimed that Depp assaulted her on a private plane flying from Boston to LA. She alleged that Depp blacked out intoxicated. Amber Heard vehemently claims that Depp becomes a different person, a quote-unquote monster, when he is intoxicated with drugs and alcohol and he beats her up to the pulp. In the trial, there were numerous audio recordings being played as both couple have decided to record themselves during their fights. Heard said the reason they record is that because due to Depp's intoxication, he forgets what he did the next day. However, Depp asserted that they recorded themselves because Heard doesn't admit to doing what she actually does. Anyhow, in this Boston flight, there was a recording being played in court, and if you have heard it, you will be in disbelief how someone can strongly claim that she was beaten up on that flight. So in 2015, Depp was filming Pirates of the Caribbean 5 in Gold Coast, Australia. This is one of the key moments in this trial because this was the time when Johnny Depp's finger was severed and had to undergo surgery to put it back. Can you imagine? With how his finger got severed, the couple have hugely opposite testimonies. Depp alleged that Heard became irate during a discussion about a post-nuptial agreement. Quote, she could not let go of the fact that I was on this post-nup agreement and that I was trying to trick her into essentially getting nothing if something were to happen, unquote. He said that he told her those were not his intentions, but that conversation escalated into madness, chaos, and violence. When he was asked how his fingers became injured, Depp said that things got too crazy. He went behind the bar, grabbed a bottle of vodka that was there and a shot glass, poured himself 2 or 3 stiff shots of vodka, which were the first taste of alcohol he had in a long time because he was trying to get sober. Heard, having found him at the bar, started screaming at him about his drinking and walked up to him, reached and grabbed the bottle of the vodka, and then stood back and hurled it to him. It went right past his head and smashed behind him. This was him on the stand. I actually saw this. And he was narrating about this incident. When Depp grabbed another bottle to pour himself a drink, Heard was flinging insults at him, grabbed that bottle and threw it at him. The bottle made contact to his finger and shattered everywhere. When he felt some kind of heat and as if something was dripping down his hand, then he realized that his finger got severed and noticed his bones were sticking out. However, Heard's testimony is completely different. Heard said that Depp was very upset about her working with Eddie Redmayne on a movie called The Danish Girl and recounted a belligerent interaction with Depp that made her realize that, quote, arrows were pointed at her again, unquote. A physical altercation began, and Depp slammed her against the wall hard and called her names. At one point, Heard said Depp threw her into a ping pong table, got on top of her, and whacked her in the face repeatedly. With all the recordings and photographs Amber Heard showed at this point, including the bar where it happened with traces of broken glass, there was no photo of herself with visible injuries that are as bad as you could imagine based on her allegations. And take note, she was the one showing all of these photos in the first instance. Anyway, she then said that Depp was throwing bottles in her direction and she could feel glass breaking behind her and one bottle going past her head, which left her terrified. Depp then started punching the wall next to her head and holding her by the neck. She said that he said extremely mean words. She graphically described this altercation, suggesting physical and sexual violence. After the altercation, she said she took some sleeping pills, and when she woke up, Depp already severed his finger. In this trial, a lot of witnesses have been either called or subpoenaed. And then with all the testimony from Heard's side, there were a lot of inconsistencies, including hers, which is very interesting to the point entertaining and at a point of disbelief. I might do another episode about this, as this trial has been quite long and there are a lot of grounds to cover that are quite interesting. So, in 2016, Depp and Heard had an argument during her birthday party where he wanted out of the marriage. He then later went back to their shared residence at the Eastern Columbia building in LA, but his security guard advised him that it wasn't a good time. And the reason why it's not a good time was that the security guard, being in their penthouse to get his stuff, discovered a human fecal matter on his side of the bed. A photo was taken by the security guard and sent to Depp. He said that his initial response was that he laughed. Quote, it was so bizarre and so grotesque that he could only laugh, unquote. So he did not go to their penthouse that day. In May 2016, Amber Heard files for divorce claiming abuse. In a sworn declaration for the divorce filing, Heard specifically referenced one recent event that Depp threw a cell phone at her during a fight, in which she sustained a bruise to the face. There was a photograph shown during her testimony about her face, but again, there's really visibly nothing. So I don't know how the jury is going to interpret that. But this incident was actually investigated by LAPD because they have received a call twice that night, but ruled out that there was no crime that has taken place. And take note, these people, the police, it was a specific hotline for domestic violence, and they were trained to detect a situation involving domestic violence. But with this investigation, even twice, they have ruled out that there was no crime taken. And in the trial, there were also actually a lot of video evidence, including the LAPD's body cam, as well as statements from the officers themselves who were there that night, that Amber Heard didn't have any visible injuries. And in 2017, the divorce has been finalized, with Depp retaining his properties, including his private island in the Bahamas. Again, there's another incident that went on there, which I might share on later on. And Heard keeping the dogs she attempted to smuggle in Australia and accused of defecating the bed, as well as a $7 million settlement, which she later claimed to have been donated with a capital DONATED to charity, both to ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, because she, quote unquote, wanted nothing. Both parties signed into a non-disparagement clause, or NDA, they call it NDA, which prevented from speaking ill of the marriage or divorce process. This is quite interesting. Again, with the Australia thing, they went here and then the dogs were smuggled. And in Australia, I could really testify to this. They are very, very strict in terms of bringing in nuts, even to the point of nuts, coffee beans, and whatever. And even the boots, if your shoe has been soiled in a swamp or something, then you have to declare that. When I first came here to migrate, I even declared that I brought delicacies with nuts because I was very terrified that I might not be saying it honestly or something like that, but it's not that type of nut that they meant. So it's a nut where you have to plant something like that. So any plants that you need to introduce to their ecosystem, and also animals. So in terms of the dogs, there was a whole lot of thing around it which would make another episode, but that was just very interesting thing too. I have also emphasized the word donated because that's gonna be very crucial in the next episode. So yes, Amber Heard said that she donated the 7 million settlement to charity. However, in 2018, Amber Heard writes an op-ed for the Washington Post with the help of the ACLU and with the subject, Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. This is the article being sued by Johnny Depp because although the article took him out explicitly, it has implied him. There was a paragraph in the article, quote, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out, unquote. And on another paragraph, quote, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse, unquote. This was referring to Johnny Depp when she filed her divorce 2 years ago in 2016, where she alleged that she was abused. And again, in the trial, she was very much denying it, and sometimes another testimony also saying that it's about Johnny Depp and all others. So it was a whole commotion there, but that's on another episode. So if you go back to the timeline, and I'm just going to make some little commentary here as little as possible, but it does make sense when you connect the dots. So in 2019, Depp files for a $50 million defamation suit against Heard, claiming that Heard is fabricating allegations to generate positive publicity and likewise calls her the perpetrator of domestic abuse. This sounds big of Depp, right? But if the truth is on your side, you don't have to compete with the lies. In 2020, recordings have emerged around the internet and other publications of Heard admitting to attacking Depp. The Daily Mail published recordings in which Heard admitted to hitting Depp. The audio was played during the televised trial that occurred from 11th of April to 27th of May. Just to quote something from the audio, Heard said, quote, "I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched," unquote. In the 6-week trial that I have witnessed in YouTube, by the way, Zesties, this trial has been televised. There were numerous eerie audio recordings. The reason this was televised, by the way, was because Johnny Depp requested it, whilst Amber Heard has requested to stop this motion, but the court ruled to have this televised. The rationale behind this for Johnny Depp was that he has already lost everything: his job, his roles, his reputation. Presenting this to the world, no matter how embarrassing it is part of telling the truth and his story because he has nothing to lose. He has lost everything already. A lot of legal commentators have said in the beginning that Johnny Depp has the uphill battle of proving that the article has defamed him, as most defamation suits are difficult to prove. So, in July to November 2020, Depp had sued the Sun newspaper in the UK for defaming him. The Sun is a tabloid in the UK which released an article calling him a quote-unquote wife beater in reference to his marriage to Heard. During the trial, Depp received supportive statements from his ex-wife and alleged Heard had defecated in his bed as well as having extramarital affairs with James Franco and Elon Musk. This is quite interesting, as there have been evidence submitted on the trial of a CCTV video of James Franco going to Depp and Heard's penthouse when Depp was away filming. The video with Musk wasn't in evidence, but it was circulating around the internet. Take note that Heard wasn't the defendant in this case, but the tabloid The Sun, who just based their article from whatever Amber Heard has shared previously to the public. Depp lost the battle on this one. So in the same month of November 2020, Depp got sacked from the Fantastic Beasts franchise, which is such a bummer. Although Mads Mikkelsen, aka Hannibal Lecter, has done a fantastic take of Grindelwald, I still did like Johnny Depp's take too, and it was already imprinted on my mind, so I cannot unsee it. And finally, April 2022, the case began, which is this case that I'm talking about. And as of this recording, the verdict hasn't been decided yet. And I've only shared you the timeline of events, but I hope to share on the next few episodes, if I can, the key highlights, the evidence and testimony, and also the funny moments of the trial. But I hope this episode has kept you updated on how it came about and why there was actually a trial. It has come a long way, but the main takeaway here, Zesties, is just to be careful of what you say. Yes, there is freedom of speech, where we have the right to articulate our opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or legal sanction. If you look at it clearly, freedom of speech is the right to articulate opinions, not making your opinions as facts. And freedom is not the same as doing anything you like, saying anything you like to the detriment of others, especially if it's said with malice or willful disregard of the truth. So yes, this trial has made me forget a little tiny bit of area in my life where I'm very sad about. It's very entertaining to the point that I'd say I'm living for this. I'm living for this drama, you know? So you find entertainment. And then you might say, what? You find entertainment in a trial? But in the next few episodes, I'll tell you why, and you will know why. Other than entertainment, I've also learned a lot about the law, which really fascinated me. And fun fact, when I was in high school, I did consider becoming a lawyer. Well, anyway, if you haven't followed and rated the podcast, I would be very happy if you will. And if you'd like to give me a cup of coffee or two, head down to the episode notes where you can find a link to buy me one or two. A big shout out to the Zesties who have asked me to do an episode about this, and I was really on the fence of creating this type of episode because it's not the usual episode that I normally do on the show, but it has been fascinating. We can also learn a lot from this trial and this situation. So big shout out to the Zesties, and I've been asked quite a few times, but the one that really made me take that step is my friend Jem. So, Jem, big shout out to you. Thank you very much for your support, and I'll see you on the next episode.